Good morning. My name is Eli. Can you please tell me your full name?
Good morning. My name is Therese Stevens.
This is Therese, and as you might already be able to tell, she's not actually an IELTS student. In fact, she's an expert IELTS teacher and a native English speaker from Ireland. She also has a YouTube channel called IELTS English Gurus, so go and check it out afterwards. Now, throughout this video, I'll be highlighting some of the great language that Therese uses, and I'll be putting that at the top of the screen. And let me know in the comment section, how much of the conversation do you understand? Let's go. Now, Therese, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about the building where you live. Tell me about the building that you live in now.
Yes, so I live in a semi-detached house in the suburban area of Dublin, and it's about 125 square meters. It is on 2 levels, so it's a 2-leveled house.
Have you lived in this building for a long time?
Yes, I've lived in this house for about 4 years now.
Is there anything you would like to change about this building?
Yes, there are many things I would like to change about the building. One of the windows, it needs to be repaired. There's a crack in the window, and there are also, I need to repair the floor. There's a wooden floor which has been damaged by water, so that has to be repaired, and it needs regular maintenance. Yes.
Let's move on. Let's talk about television. How often do you watch television?
Very rarely. I rarely watch television.
Why?
I don't have a lot of time to watch TV, and I prefer to invest my time in other activities that are going to be productive.
Are there any kinds of television programs you really don't like?
Yes. I really don't like series that have no meaning or no a very kind of valueless script. I don't like programs that have no development in the dramatic element of the show.
Do you prefer watching television alone or with other people when you do watch television?
Yes, it doesn't really matter to me, but usually alone rather than with other people. Yeah.
Would you like to be on television?
Yes, I would.
Why?
Sure. Because I like the idea of being on film. I think it's fun, it's exciting, and it's a great way to get notoriety. Yeah.
Let's talk about plants and flowers. Do you prefer plants or flowers?
I prefer flowers most of the time, although plants I like also because they produce fruit and vegetables that you can use. So, or maybe I prefer flowers that have fruit. Yeah.
Do you like to have plants or flowers in your home?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I have a lot of flowers in my home. I have tulips and roses that I put in the kitchen area or the dining area. And then outside, I grow hydrangeas and a variety of flowers. Yeah.
So I just want to point out something that Therese does really nicely in part 1. She gives a short response and then she elaborates on her answers. So she says, absolutely, in fact, and then she begins to elaborate on her answer. This is something that I've noticed high-level English speakers do in the IELTS test. So a high-level English speaker will give a short response like absolutely, completely, not at all the time, and then they'll begin to elaborate on their answers. Have you ever given plants or flowers to anyone?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Usually to women. I've noticed men don't usually respond well to flower gifts. So usually to my female friends or my sisters or, yeah.
Why do you think some people like to grow plants and flowers as a hobby?
I'm not really sure, but I think some people have a natural green thumb, as we say in English, that they have that natural ability, with plants. But I also believe that plants emit a certain energy that they also give out oxygen. So people feel better when they're around plants.
Hey, I just want to interrupt here. This is something that high-level English speakers also do. They say, I don't really know, or I'm not really sure. but then they have a go at answering the question anyway. Remember, in IELTS you'll get a lot of strange questions like, why do you think some people like to grow plants as a hobby? When you get a question that you don't know the answer to, just say, I don't really know, but then try answering the question anyway. Now, in this next part, I'd like to ask you, I would like to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Now, before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's clear.
So here is a pen and some paper.
Okay,
Do you want to just make sure that that pen works? If not, then I have another one that I can give you.
It doesn't really work.
Let's go for this pencil then.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
And here is your topic.
Okay.
I'd like you to describe a book that you enjoyed reading.
Okay, sure.
Alright, remember you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Sure. So the topic or the book that I would like to talk about is A Brave New World. And this book was written by Aldous Huxley. I don't remember when exactly it was written, but I think it was written around 1939, so about 90 years ago or 85 years ago. And the reason I read the book is really just because it was in my house when I was living with my family at home as a teenager. So I picked it up. I was always reading. And this book really resonated with me because it was written so long ago. And the story in the book is about people in the future, how people will live. And Huxley predicted that people would be living in a very technical way. So in order to have entertainment, they took this drug called soma. And they had a very kind of open, promiscuous lifestyle, these people. And it just really portrayed a very kind of amoral life, amoral society. And what's interesting is that Huxley was actually quite accurate in a lot of ways in a lot of his predictions. And so I really, really enjoyed that book. And the other thing is that Huxley was really into eugenics. You know, he was really interested in the evolution of society. And he was part of a group of people that wanted to change the way we evolved as people. So, yeah, so this book really was very accurate. And I think that's why I really enjoyed it.
Okay, did you see what happened there? Therese's part 2 had come to a natural end, but when she looked up, she could see that 2 minutes hadn't passed, and I was still expecting her to talk. Now, this is often a point that distinguishes lower and higher level students. A lower level student would begin to repeat what they have already said, or start looking at the topic to see if there are any other questions they can answer. A higher level student will be able to think of something new to talk about and will be able to develop their answers. At the end of this test, I'll give you some tips on what to do if you find it difficult to talk for 2 minutes. However, for the meantime, let's see what Therese does.
And of course, he wrote a lot of other books similar to that, kind of predicting the future and the evolution of mankind. But in a lot of ways, another reason I enjoyed the book is that it's also quite sad.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have you still got a copy of this book?
No, I don't actually. I don't even know where it is now.
Thank you. Can I take the paper and the paper from you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much. So we've been talking about a book that you read, and I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions related to this.
Sure.
Let's consider first of all reading non-fiction, so factual books. Why do you think people like to read non-fiction books?
I think the reason people like to read non-fiction is mostly to learn. You know, if you're a student, of course, you need to read non-fiction books. And if you're not a student, well, you're a student of life. So you continue learning every time you read a non-fiction book.
What do you think are the advantages of reading books about a topic rather than, say, watching documentaries?
It's a really, really good question, I think, because I think there's a big difference. Because I think when you actually read, you're getting a lot more information. You're getting details that you might remember because you're seeing it in print. Yeah, and I think that it could be a better learning process to read. And also, the other thing is that you can get more information in a shorter period of time, sometimes if you read. So it could be more beneficial to read, I think.
But wouldn't you get a shorter, or wouldn't it take less time to watch a documentary because it can move at such a fast pace?
Maybe you're right about that. Yeah, it could be. But maybe you might get more detail with the reading process. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the kind of question that I begin to ask from now on are considered to be very difficult for a typical IELTS speaking test. Basically, I can see that Therese has a very high level of English, so I want to push her and challenge her to see just how good her English is. So if you're hearing my questions and thinking, I have no idea how I would answer these questions, don't worry. These are questions that only very, very, very advanced speakers of English would be asked. Do you think that non-fiction books are the best way to communicate information to an audience?
Best way to communicate information to an audience, non-fiction books. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, because I think video is very, very impactful. Because nowadays a lot of people don't respond to the written words so much. They respond more to visual. And because people are so busy, they don't always have time to read long, lengthy stuff. So they tend to watch something because they get more information. And it's more engaging. It's more attractive.
What do you think writers can do to make non-fiction more engaging for the readers?
That's a really hard question.
It is hard.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know that nowadays a lot of writers add illustrations to engage people who are less literate. But also just your style of writing can make a difference. You know, using like a hook at the beginning of your text can really engage people. And also writing in a colorful way, writing in a way that is attractive. It's not boring, it's not routine. So yeah, I guess that's how writers could do it.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the power of books. Now, people can often read the same book and come up with, and this is not necessarily non-fiction, but books in general.
Yes.
People can read the same book and get very different interpretations of that book. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that in general, people interpret life completely differently. And I think that one person reading a book will have a completely different perception as another one. As in for the color of your shirt. Some people might say it's green. Other people might say, well, actually, it's gray or borderline, another color. So it's all about perception. We all have a completely different
and what kind of things do you think can change our perception?
Well, I think that maybe our circumstances, for one thing, can affect how we think. So, you know, you control your own mind. So if you are perceiving, if you may perceive something because you're in a positive frame of mind or a negative frame of mind. So we have to try to control that. Yeah, but it could also be related to our culture, how we've been raised, and the way we interpret things. The culture, basically, the circumstances, but our own mind. We have great control over that too. Yeah.
Moving back to books slightly more, do you think that there are benefits to reading books that you don't necessarily agree with?
Do I think there are benefits to reading books that I don't agree with?
Yeah, so for example, if you're reading books that have particularly strong opinions that you might not necessarily believe in or agree with, do you think there's ever a benefit of reading those types of books?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to read opinions that you don't agree with. And it's really important to meet people that you also might not agree with, because it really opens your mind to another perspective. And that's what life is all about, you know, learning about the world, learning about the other opinions out there. When we're born, we believe that we come into a certain way of thinking and culture. and we think everything in our culture is right. But it's important to remember there are thousands of other cultures out there with different points of view. So yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Therese. That is the end of the speaking test.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Right, well, it's safe to say that Therese got band 9 in the speaking test. Now, what I'll do is explain a little bit about why she is band 9, and to do that, I'm going to use the public band descriptors. So you can see that your speaking is evaluated on 4 criteria. The first one is fluency and coherence. Okay, so this refers to your ability to develop your ideas without repetition or hesitation. At band 9, it says, speaks fluently with only rare repetition or self-correction. Now, repetition and self-correction usually appear in part 2 of the speaking test, where you have to speak for 2 minutes, especially when you begin to run out of things to say. Therese is a master at this. There's a brief moment when she looks up to see whether she has spoken for 2 minutes, and when she sees that she hasn't, she's able to quickly think of more ideas to talk about so that she can make sure that she speaks for the full 2 minutes. Now, if you guys find it difficult to speak for 2 minutes, one thing that you can do is, when you run out of things to say, begin speaking about the future. So, for example, you can say, if I get the chance, I'd like to read this book again because, and then elaborate. Or, talking about this book reminds me that I should read more of his books. Or, I think I'll give this book to my cousin for his birthday. You see, and then elaborate. As soon as you begin to think about the future, you'll get a whole new set of ideas for what you can talk about in part 2. Okay, again, Therese would get band 9 for lexical resource. So, lexical resource refers to the vocabulary that you use, and at band 9 it says, uses vocabulary with full flexibility and precision in all topics. Now, Therese really did this very well. When we were talking about buildings, she used vocabulary like semi-detached and two-leveled house. When we were talking about flowers, she talked about how some people have a green thumb and was able to list all of the flowers and plants that she had in her garden. Whatever the topic was we talked about, Therese was able to discuss it with ease. Now, there's a slight misconception in IELTS that in order to get a high score, you have to use unusual idiomatic vocabulary like it's raining cats and dogs or once in a blue moon. Actually, the best way to get a high score is to have lots of topic-specific vocabulary, so that whatever topic you get asked about, you can show the examiner that you can talk fluently about this topic. A really great way to improve this is to watch Keith's live lessons every Thursday, where he talks about vocabulary and sentence structures for discussing the common topics that appear in IELTS. In terms of grammatical range and accuracy, Therese would also get band 9. At band 9 it says, uses a full range of structures naturally and appropriately. Now, Therese uses advanced grammar in the way it should be used to convey her ideas. For example, watch the way that she uses conditional structures when she answers this question. Why do you think people like to read non-fiction books?
I think the reason people like to read non-fiction is mostly to learn. You know, if you're a student, of course, you need to read non-fiction books. And if you're not a student, well, you're a student of life. So you continue learning every time you read a non-fiction book.
Finally, for pronunciation, Therese is also band 9. Now, obviously, being a native speaker is going to make this easier. However, getting a good score for pronunciation isn't just about having a clear accent. It's also about the way that you vary the speed and pitch of your voice to convey your ideas. Listen to this. How often do you watch television?
Very rarely. I rarely watch television.
Okay, you can hear the way she emphasizes the word rarely. I rarely watch television. And now listen to how the pitch of her voice goes up and then down as she explains why. Why?
I don't have a lot of time to watch TV, and I prefer to invest my time in other activities that are going to be productive.
So thank you, Therese, for coming and doing an IELTS speaking test. Let me know, guys, how much of the conversation did you understand? Leave your answer in the comment section below. Also, please check out Therese's YouTube channel, which is IELTS English Gurus, and especially her video on complex sentences, which I think will really help you in your IELTS writing. Best of luck with your studies, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye then.